It's often hard to know when one's life and work is perfectly placed in both time and location by God. Isidore of Seville found himself in the aftermath of the Roman Empire in the middle of the Visigothic Kingdom's rule and would pass away just before Arabic forces would take over Seville. Isidore's life and works connected the foundational authors and ideas of antiquity through to the late Middle Ages. Bishop Isidore used his faith in God and humanity to calm the ever-shifting waters of his day and give a light to the world that would continue to shine on for hundreds of years. Stay tuned as we look at why the life and works of Isidore of Seville have had a long-lasting impact on the world. Isidore was born in Cartagena, Spain, around 560 AD to Severinus and Theodora. His parents were part of high-ranking families who were influential in the Visigothic kings turning from Arianism to Catholicism. It wasn't just his parents who were influential. Isidore was one of 4 children, all who would become canonized saints. His oldest brother, Leander, preceded Isidore as Bishop of Seville and helped continue the path of the government and its people toward Catholicism. His older brother Fulgentius served as Bishop of Ecija for around 30 years. His youngest sister Florentina became a nun, and although accounts might have exaggerated some numbers, she was more than likely involved with leading converts and other nuns. With a family as prestigious as this, it is not much of a surprise that Isidore would leave an impact of his own. But surprisingly, he would actually outshine all his siblings when it came to his impact on not just Christian history, but the development of human thought itself. Isidore gained his education in the Cathedral School of Seville. The education was a typical liberal arts education, teaching the trivium and quadrivium as well as learning Latin and a small amount of Greek and Hebrew. Backing up a few years, a little bit of context is necessary to understand the culture and atmosphere that Isidore was surrounded by. Seville was once a part of the Roman Empire, but as the empire began to fall, a group known as the Visigoths took over much of the previous Roman land of Hispania. The king of the Visigoths when Isidore was born, and while Leander was archbishop, was named Leovigild, and he was a staunch believer in Arianism. Leovigild would eventually begin to be pushed back, and much of what Leander and his brother Isidore would do in their work would be in response to the culture that Leovigild helped grow in the area. Isidore's brother became Archbishop of Seville around 534 and would lead until his death around 600. After his death, Isidore was elected to become the new Archbishop of Seville. As the new bishop, he began to create a new approach to leading his people. With the Visigothic Kingdom losing its control over the area, Isidore attempted to counteract some of their practices while lending an outstretched hand to bring together Seville as a whole. He first began by introducing a new focus on educational reform. This included combating the widespread illiteracy by making writings of philosophers and theologians from the recent past available for reading and study. His second focus was on fighting back against the Arian heresy that had taken root from the Visigothic occupation. During his time as archbishop, he resided over the second and third Synod of Seville. The first occurred in 619, where questions of ecclesiastical and theological matters were the center of discussion. They attempted to outline orthodox views regarding the nature of Christ, and officially spoke against a Syrian named Gregory, representing a heretical sect, Acephali, who rejected the authority of the Council of Chalcedon. The third synod allegedly took place in 624, where they wrongfully stripped Bishop Martinius of his see of Ecija, which would be rectified in the fourth council of Toledo. However, the only account of this comes from the pseudo-Isidorian recordings rather than the collection of canons referred to as Hispania, which the other meetings around this time are all listed in. In December of 633, Isidore would preside over the Fourth National Council of Toledo, which would be the final council he would preside over before his death. This council set forth many ideas that Isidore had been developing through his entire life. All the bishops of Hispania attended as they sought to develop Hispania into an area of deep educational learning. Some of the decisions made commanded all bishops to establish seminaries in their cathedral cities, similar to those Isidore was a part of in Seville. He established the study of Greek, Hebrew, and the liberal arts, as well as other important fields like law and medicine. Another focus he was able to pursue in the council was a continued effort in trying to bridge the gap between the Visigothic Kingdom and the people of Hispania of the Catholic faith. They, of course, stressed the Visigoths to abandon their Arian beliefs, but they heavily encouraged the bishops to pursue relationships with the Visigoths in leadership. A final note was that they pushed for uniformity in the Spanish Mass, once again attempting to break down all barriers. The seminal work of Isidore is undoubtedly what is referred to as the Etymology. The Etymology is the practical example of all that Isidore stood for over the years. Isidore collected sources from all over the spectrum and became the first Christian writer to compile a summa of universal knowledge. He used writers such as Pliny the Elder, Eusebius, Augustine, Josephus, Boethius, Jerome, Plato, and Aristotle, to name a few. Isidore quotes from around 475 works from over 200 authors. Even though Isidore was unable to finish his work before his death, it ended up being 448 chapters in 20 volumes. Although I could spend hours going over this collection, I wanted to give a short overview of the 20 books and mention the topics in case you wanted to start in a specific section. So, in quick manner, we have Book 1, titled Grammar, where he describes the alphabet, parts of speech, accents, punctuations, and how to navigate the road of learning. Book 2, titled Rhetoric and Dialect, which describes kinds of arguments, maxims, elocutions, philosophy, syllogisms, and definitions. Book 3, titled Mathematics, Music, and Astronomy, looking at arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy, and how to separate it from astrology. Book 4, titled Medicine, where he outlines the 4 humors, diseases, remedies, and medical treatments. Book 5, titled Laws and Times, which introduce the natural law, civil law, public law, and days of the week, times, months, and seasons. Book 6, titled Books and Offices of the Church, where he looks at the Old and New Testament, translations, scribes, and festivals. Book 7, titled God, Angels, and Saints, where he gives a Trinitarian scheme of God and outlines the hierarchies of heaven and earth. Book 8, titled Sects of the Church, where he looks at the Roman Catholic Church, Jews, heretical sects, and philosophers. Book 9, titled Languages, People, and Kingdoms, looks at how communities came together. Book 10, titled Etymologies, where he gives an in-depth look into the history of words and their relationships through the evolutionary process. Book 11, titled Mankind, Portents, and Transformations, which looks at the description of creation, biology, and definitions of man and woman. Book 12, titled Beasts and Birds, which gives a wide account of beasts, some true, some not, and their anatomy. Book 13, titled The Cosmos and Its Parts, which looks at the physical world, atoms, elements, and other natural phenomena. Book 14, titled The Earth and Its Parts, looking at the geography of continents as well as the physical attributes. Book 15, titled Buildings and Fields, which look at public buildings, public works, and the nature of public services. Book 16, titled Metals and Stones, like gemstones, glass, and the weights and measures of these items. Book 17, titled Agriculture, which describes grains, legumes, trees, aromatic herbs, and vegetables, to name a few. Book 18, titled War and Games, which defines the terms of battle as well as the games for the people. Book 19, titled Ships, Houses, and Clothes, which looks at all the instruments and pieces of ships as well as the items inside of homes. Book 20, finally, Isidore looks at food, tools, and furnishings, going into depth on cooking, home furniture, and farm equipment. Although this collection might seem mundane to readers today, this collection would be the most popular compendium through the Middle Ages. His ability to bring together such a wide range of topics and sources led to one person remarking on this work that it was, quote, practically everything that is necessary to know. It would continue to be seen in this light as it became the resource scholars used to connect back to the original concepts and arguments foundational to educational development. After he held the Fourth National Council of Toledo, he began to decline in health, being stricken with a fatal illness. Once he realized he was approaching the end, he called together all the officials in the cathedral church in Seville. In his last days, he asked for those to remember him in prayer and added, quote, "May I, who am unworthy by my merits to obtain pardon from God, by your prayers receive forgiveness for my sins," end quote. A few months later, on April 4th, 636, he passed away. Isidore's work in his collection Etymology single-handedly served as a connection to the vast teachings of the previous 600 years. His wide collection of information and writers led not just to Christian development, but the development of all aspects of life, from legumes to medicine. His work was unique since it allowed almost anyone to use his collection simply by flipping to the writings specific to their differing public professions. By not having to access these resources individually, the etymology saved a ton of time for those seeking to search out information. This idea might sound familiar to people like yourself, and because of that, it might not surprise you that there was a petition in the early 2000s to make Isidore the patron saint of the internet. Although he would never receive the official title, the internet we have today encompasses the ideas that Isidore had while he was collecting the writings of his day. The access we have at the tips of our fingers today, although infinitely more accessible and wide-reaching, is, in its essence, the same goal that Isidore dedicated his life to create and would have the same impact for his day as the internet has been for ours. But with that being said, I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time with another informative and accessible introduction.